Hey everybody, this is Bill. Welcome to the channel. Today we're talking college football. We're going to reveal our top 25 for week 7. We're going to talk a little bit about who fell out of the top 25 from last week and some teams that are looking to get in next week's top 25. We'll also talk about a couple of the goings on around the game we love, college football. So join us as we preview the week 7 top 25. All right, so let's take a look at who fell out of last week's top 25. That would be Kentucky. They were 24th ranked. They had already lost to Georgia, got bombed by the Bulldogs. They fell against Missouri. Missouri's a good football team, and Kentucky's a good football team. But right now, with 2 losses, some other teams are getting a little bit more attention in our mind. But we got Kentucky sitting right there. They're ready to jump back in it at a moment's notice. And Washington State, a big victory early in the season, looking good, beat Wisconsin, beat Oregon State. Really looking, got absolutely lambasted by Arizona. Now listen, folks, Arizona is an up-and-coming team. Their coach, Jed Fish, he's got things going over there at Arizona, but nobody expected Arizona really to win, much less win as decisively as they did. Now, I did not see the ball game, but man, that is just a tough one for Washington State to overcome. They just got killed, and Arizona got to be feeling pretty good. But Washington State and Kentucky, they're 2 teams that fell out of last week's top 25. Now looking to get in next week, we got Air Force and Fresno State. Now they're 2 teams out on the west side you don't hear much about, but they're both pretty good. Air Force is undefeated. The Miami Hurricanes, it's disappointing. They got beat at North Carolina, but they're still lounging around. They got Clemson this weekend at home. If they can wipe out Clemson, they could get back in. Kentucky, we just mentioned. West Virginia having a good season with Neil Brown. They got to keep it up. Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, same story, different year. A&M can still do some damage out here, though. And here's Arizona, the team that we saw just destroy Washington State. Wow. Hey, the Florida Gators are back in consideration here. They went up to South Carolina and got a big, they were down late, but they got a big victory. Ricky Pearsall with the touchdown there. And here's Washington State. They had looked good this season, but boy, they just got killed, as we mentioned. Wyoming, Kansas State, Kansas, they lost this weekend. Oklahoma State looked terrible to start the season, but they've kind of regrouped and they've beat some teams. Interesting to see what they can do down the stretch. Hey, Liberty's still undefeated, and James Madison. These are 2 teams kind of under the radar that you don't think about, but they're having great seasons. So we're looking at these teams among those that can get back in it next week. All right, folks, before we get over to the top 25, we want to invite you to like us over on Facebook at the Color and Pageantry. We're not a very big site. We don't have a heck of a lot going on, but we do post during the week from time to time about events going on in college football, so you may enjoy it over there. That's on Facebook at the Color and Pageantry. All right, at 25th, we have Tulane. Now, they're 5-1, new entry into our poll. We remember them last year beating Southern Cal in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. They're playing good again. Their quarterback, Michael Pratt, he's a guy I really like. Tulane enters at 25th. Iowa. Now, they had that horrific loss to Penn State on the road where they didn't do anything. And they're not very good on offense, but they do have an elite defense with Cooper DeJean. They're 6-1. They beat Wisconsin in a snooze fest last week. But Iowa, they're right there. A lot's in front of them. I just don't think they can do anything. But at 6-1 and with what they've been doing, they got to be ranked. Louisville, they were 15th last week, jumped into the top 25 with a big victory over Notre Dame. And then they go on the road and lose handily at Pitt. We think Louisville's a good team at home but has trouble out on the road. They fall to 23rd. UCLA, we think, is a very good football team. They've got a sound program going on there in Westwood. We like what they're doing. They're not great, but they're pretty doggone good. UCLA 4-2. Clemson, now they're trying to rebound after the early loss to Duke and getting knocked out in overtime at home by Florida State. They're kind of shifty there, but we think Clemson's pretty good. They're at Miami this week. We'll see what happens there. Missouri, that's a good football team, 6-1 now. They got the loss to LSU. A lot is ahead of Missouri potentially, so let's see what the Tigers can do. They come in at 20th. Now, Southern Cal comes in at 19th. They were defeated handily by Notre Dame on the road. Southern Cal, a very good offensive team with Caleb Williams, but they don't have much going on defensively. The lines of scrimmage aren't that great. Southern Cal could have been exposed. They may have more losses coming. We're going to have to see if that offense can bail them out of a lot of games. Tennessee is 18th. They've been winning. The loss to Florida was ugly, but it is looking a bit better these days. But Tennessee's there. It's the third Saturday in October coming up, and that's going to find Tennessee against Alabama. We'll see more as that comes to fruition. LSU's 17th. We think LSU's good. They've been playing kind of iffy, but they're pretty good, we think. LSU's in at 17th, and Notre Dame 6-2. The last 4 games have been just murderous row over there. They've come out of it looking pretty good, though. They're 6-2. The Irish looking pretty good. Utah is a very strong football team. They're 15th. Now, they don't have their quarterback, so they could run into trouble. Very good on the line of scrimmage, very good defensively. But Utah in at 15th. Duke is good. Now, their quarterback may return from being injured this week. They're at Florida State. Don't even know if they can handle the Seminoles with Riley Leonard. But that's going to be fun to watch. We're going to get a good gauge of what's going on in the ACC at that game at Doak Campbell Saturday night. Oregon State is 13th. That's a good football team. We predicted them to do very well in the Pac-12, and look at where they're at, 6-1. Oregon, Ole Miss, they're pretty doggone good. We don't think they're great, but here they are. Ole Miss looking good, 5-1. The North Carolina Tar Heels come in at 11th. They're undefeated. They won handily against Miami. They're looking pretty good, both sides of the ball, and they've got the great quarterback Drake May. So North Carolina is on a path to the ACC championship game to probably play Florida State. And if they win that, North Carolina, they could be in the playoff. Coming in 9th is the Oregon Ducks, who lost a very close football game at Washington this past week. Now, Oregon is playing much better than we thought they would this year, so we got to tip our cap to Oregon. They're a very good football team. They could have easily won this game last weekend. They came out on the short end, but they played very well. We look for Oregon to continue to be a problem. That's a very good football team. Texas comes in at 8th. They have the loss to Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Texas can continue to win, and then they could get Oklahoma again. We'll see how that shakes out. Now, Penn State is 7th. We think this is the best Penn State team since Saquon Barkley was running around. We'll find out because they're at Ohio State, who we got 5th this week. Big noon, at noon on Fox. Going to be a great football game. Very interested to see how that shakes out. Oklahoma's in at 6th. Oh, they got their big win over Texas. They're undefeated, playing much better this season than they did last year. We figured that would happen coming in. They're looking good, the Sooners. Now, of course, Ohio State, who we just mentioned, they are very strong. Penn State going to tell us a lot right there. Florida State is 4th. They are playing okay. They could be playing better. They better tighten the head strap on now because this Duke team coming in is physical and they can win the ball game. So Florida State can't be monkeying around, kind of like they did against Virginia Tech. They played Syracuse pretty well this past week, but they better have it on. We'll find out. That's at Doak Saturday night. ABC. Washington, their big victory over Oregon. They're 3rd. We love the Huskies. Michael Penix, they're very good, at least on offense. Really good football team. Michigan, number 2. Michigan is just sound everywhere you look. And the Wolverines look like they're on a collision course till that Ohio State game. They do got Penn State. We're gonna find out Penn State, Ohio State, see what's going on. But we think Michigan is probably going back to the playoff. And the Georgia Bulldogs remain number 1. They haven't lost. They've got Florida this weekend. The greatest cocktail party on the world in Jacksonville, Florida at the Gator Bowl on the St. Johns River. Georgia. Now, they lost their brilliant tight end, Brock Bowers, to injury. He's going to be out for several weeks. That's a big loss for Georgia. That's about the one guy I think Georgia really can't afford to lose because he's their game breaker offensively. I'm going to be interested to see how the Bulldogs play without Bowers. I think he's a key player. He's a top 10 draft pick. That guy makes plays. He's wonderful. I'm sorry to see him hurt and interested to see how that affects the Dogs. But until somebody dumps the Dogs, they're number 1. Okay, folks, that's our top 25 for week 6. Hope you enjoyed looking at that with us. Did we have somebody ranked incorrectly? Do you see anything that you think you want to bring it to our attention? Drop us some comments down there. Let us know what you're thinking. It's just very exciting. And now this week we don't have a lot of great games, but obviously the Penn State Ohio State game that we mentioned, that's going to be the big one. There's some other games that are pretty good, but that's really the one we're looking at. Always enjoy these cross-state rivalries. The Florida-Georgia game, always enjoy those, even if the teams aren't that great. But going to be another weekend. Hey, somebody is going to get beat up there. You just know it. It's going to happen. So do drop us some comments. Let us know what you think. See if you see somebody that ought to be on upset alert. All right, folks. Now, again, if you want to join us over at Facebook on the Color and Pageantry, we're not a big channel. We don't have a lot going on, but we do post some stuff during the week about college football that you might be interested in. So give us a look over there if you don't mind. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you next week. We'll talk about our new top 25 and who got beat. And we're going to take a look at who's playing really well individually. So we'll see you next week.